everybody. We are back this week. Kelsey and Sean here with Steve Klein, one of our riders and one of our sponsors. So, hi, Steve. How you doing?
How's it going?
Hey, I'm doing great down here in Texas. How y'all doing up there?
Trying to stay alive, man.
Well, spring is coming. I promise everybody, get your bikes ready, and we're going to go for a little ride.
How about the weather down there? How's it been?
It's typical Texas weather. It was 93 one day last week, and it was 19 one morning this week. So you walk out the door, you make sure you keep, a jacket, gloves, and a good felt hat in the pickup truck, because by the time you get later in the day, it may be cold as hell.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I understand today we're going to talk about nuclear gynecology, international economics. What do y'all want to talk about?
Yeah, all that stuff, politics. Let's just add it all in there.
Yeah.
It's all the good stuff.
Now, guys, I'm really thrilled to do this podcast with you. Talk about the TransAmerica endurance run. It's really exciting for me because I'm fairly passionate about the antique motorcycle sport. There's just a lot of people that are preserving and they're caring for and they're riding these wonderful old machines, simply so the world can learn about them and appreciate them and certainly take care of them so the next generation, younger people like Sean and Kelsey can carry on the tradition
Right.
that we've done. So, and what better way to do it than to have a 4,000-mile endurance race coast to coast called the TransAmerican Endurance Run.
Yeah, it's gonna be a fun one. Gonna be a challenge. It's literally all 4,000 miles. So,
well, what's most exciting for me is, my wife and I have played with these antique bikes now for, I guess, close to 35 years. I'm blessed. My wife is the one that loves antiques. If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't even be doing this. But when all these endurance runs started, 15 years ago, I have had parts, partial motorcycles. I think even had one motorcycle complete in a previous Cannonball. But I myself have never got to sit in the saddle and participate.
Wow.
And so that's what I'm most excited about. For the first time in my life, I've made the commitment and I have the time to do this.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's super awesome. I remember that's the first time I met you, Steve, was on the Cannonball in 21. You hosted us down there at one of the stops in Texas.
Yeah, I believe we were the one stop before the finish line.
Yep.
And it was a real thrill for Joan and I to host everybody coming in. And I think we had a great turnout, and the public there in Victoria, Texas, just absolutely couldn't believe people were doing these on these old motorcycles. What's really cool about this is all of these bikes had a place in transportation history, two-wheel transportation. And actually, two-wheel transportation happened really before four-wheel automobile industry hit.
Right.
De Dion Bouton invented the first internal combustion device. Pretty much every bicycle manufacturer in the United States sent a letter to France and said, hey, I want one of these devices.
Right.
And the motorcycle, evolved.
Right.
But the minute you add a motor to something, it seems that gearheads rise to the top. And in 1902, George Wyman was the first person to go transcontinental across the United States, and he did so on a 1902 Californian.
Which is literally just a little tiny bicycle. I think
it's a bicycle. Correct me here, some of you other historians and collectors, but the Californian the Thor, the Indian, pretty much every brand that was produced in the earliest days. The wheels, the wheel hubs, the pedal cranks, the motor, the forgings for the frame, everything came from Aurora Automatic Machine Company, call it Chicago, because nobody had their own motor and nobody had their own, frames and parts. But you think about George Wyman in 1902, and I think it was probably 3,800 miles from New York City to San Francisco. There were no roads.
No.
I think around 1912, if I'm correct, there were about 60 some miles of paved surface in all the United States, and most of that was New York City and Chicago, and your big cities had cobblestone or brick streets. So you think about these people going clear across the United States, so they had to be on horse and wagon train trails, freight trails. There were no roads.
Right.
Then you think about it, we have to prepare to do this 4,000-mile endurance run. But guess what? We have gas stations. We have convenience stores. Okay. We have auto parts stores. We have hotels. They must have had to send a telegram or a letter ahead that said, hey, I need gasoline at certain intervals. Because back in those days, gasoline was really not refined. And you took your, metal container or your glass pickle jar and you went to the local hardware store or the local general store, and they would pour the gas through a piece of, cloth to keep the chunks from going into your container.
Right.
So just a tremendous feat. And then, of course, Cannonball Baker, Irwin Baker, I think in 1905 or 07, set a new record. And then Irwin Baker went on to set just a lot of records coast to coast, both motorcycles and automobiles. So these were really the first sports heroes that we in America had when all this internal combustion phenomenon started. So
yeah, pioneers.
And I'd be remiss also here, Kelsey. We have to remember Ava and Effie Hotchkiss.
Yeah.
They were the first women to go transatlantic or go across country on a motorized vehicle, and did so with the sidecar attached. So
wild.
This is really not new, because 120 years ago, this was being done.
Right.
Okay. What I believe we're all doing with this event is we're allowing all of these wonderful old machines, many of which established these records 100 plus years ago, to get back on the road and make brand new history again.
Yep.
Yeah, well said, Steve. That's paying homage to where all this started, and keeping the spirit alive. That's what it's all about,
Yeah.
So,
yeah, you guys definitely will have it easier than those first people, but I don't think it's easy by any stretch of the imagination.
No,
it's really not. And I don't think George Wyman and Irwin Baker were as old as I am either. So I may have to have somebody rub my butt every night, because it's probably going to be numb.
Well, that's all right. You got hotels though, so you'll be all right.
Yeah.
You'll be able to get good rest at night at least. So.
Yeah.
So,
and what are you riding, Steve? Aren't you riding a Henderson?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so you'll be in good shape.
Well, no people that know me know that I'm very passionate about, I call them early riders. anything 1896 to 1915. And the reason I've kind of stuck with this pre-15 is prior to 1915, none of these bikes really had a transmission. And I've always considered them motorcycles. Heavy duty bicycles with a single. Some of them started coming out with a twin. I think Harley's first viable twin was like 1911.
Yep.
But they really didn't have transmissions. They were either belt drive or chain drive, but they were single speed. And until you put you put a motor in a bicycle, and until you add the transmission, I don't think you really can call them motorcycles. So I've just always kind of been hopelessly stuck with the really early stuff that gave birth to the sport. But again, for me to get on a 19, 10, 11, 12, 14 single speed motorcycle that's 4 to 5 horsepower, I weigh 260 pounds, and there's a couple of mountains between the East Coast and the West Coast, and I'm just not interested in pedaling.
You don't want to be a Dave Courier, huh?
No, sir. And I'm not. And I'm not in the shape that Dave is, and he's a little bit older than I am. And I'd like to talk about Dave a little bit later in this broadcast. But, so I kind of looked at what I own, and, Hendersons were absolutely considered the most elegant, powerful, comfortable machines on the road during the era. And I just thought, you know what? It's got to be the classiest way to do this event. And so I've got my 22 Henderson ready to go.
That's awesome.
Nice.
That's awesome. I'm a Harley guy through and through, but there's just something about a Henderson. I mean, it's probably, I hate to say this, but it's probably my favorite motorcycle from the era. I mean, it's just nothing gets better than a Henderson. And hearing them go by every day on these runs, those big fours chugging down the road, they just sound like a Swiss watch, just chugging right along. So you'll have a good time on that thing for sure.
Yeah. If you have to follow one, they really sound like a whole bunch of really pissed off hornets.
Yeah.
If that little 4-cylinder motor just sounds beautiful on all of them.
Yeah, they do.
Excelsior,
they have a distinct sound.
Henderson, Excelsior, Henderson. They just there's no exhaust note quite like it in the world.
Yeah. How long have you had yours, Steve? The one you're riding?
Oh gosh, maybe 3 years now.
Okay.
So, I've got about 2,500 miles on it, maybe a little bit more. So it's all sorted out.
Wow. Okay.
I ordered a set of big leather bags from Heather's Leather. Hopefully they'll be here by September. And then I ordered a aluminum trunk to mount on the luggage rack, which is a more modern, like an adventure bike trunk. But I wanted to keep, my clothing and some of my stuff dry. Not going to put a windshield on it. I'm just going to wear a full face, and just go out for a little ride.
Yeah, little ride every day for 16 days.
So,
do you think you're there more for the competition or the camaraderie of it?
Yes.
Both.
I think, and this is just me personal, but the very first cannonball that was ever done, which is probably 15, 16 years ago, forgive me. God rest Lonnie Jr. I knew a lot of the guys that participated in the very first one. And honestly, the vast majority of them treated it like a bunch of friends were going to just go for a ride.
Yep.
Okay. And I think how these cross country endurance runs have evolved is, we certainly have people with uh, a little larger ego, or they're just, very competitive. And if they're going to do it, they want to do really, really well.
Mhm.
I'm not that competitive anymore. Um, I really just want to get on the machine, clear my head, tell myself, let's go ride some great roads. Let's have some fun with some friends. And I'm personally treating this like the very first cannonball that ever was. I just want to be a participant, and I'd like to experience the same things that, George Wyman and Irwin Cannonball Baker and the Hotchkiss sisters, you know, the the sensory experience of going cross country, because America is a beautiful, beautiful place. And
Mhm.
what better way to do it sitting on the saddle, hanging onto a set of handlebars where you can see, smell, and experience everything. Um, and that's all I want to do.
Yeah, that's a
Mhm.
good way to do it. And kind of noting back to that, Ava and Eva Hotchkiss, the mother and daughter, we're taking a little excerpt from their book. So when they first set off on their journey in their sidecar, it was I think it was a 14 or a 15 Harley, if I'm not mistaken, and they took and they scooped a small jar of water out of the
Mason
Atlantic,
jar.
yeah, of the Atlantic, and they took it and they put it in their bike and they rode all the way across. And when they got to the Pacific, they took that water and they dumped it out into the Pacific as
Yeah.
like meeting the two bodies of water. So I want to do that with all you guys. I'm gonna issue everyone just a really small container of water, or should say empty, and then you guys can all go over to the Atlantic, scoop out that water, and then however you see fit carrying it across with you. Because I know, luggage space is pretty crucial on these things.
They'll
But
just be a little jelly jar. It'll be
yeah,
tiny.
but I would like to kind of tie that history in. So you guys, and then when we all make it across together as a unit, I want everybody to go down and dump their water into the Pacific. So it'd be pretty cool.
Sounds great.
Yep.
Let's talk about our sponsors a little bit. We'll take a little commercial break.
Yeah.
Wouldn't
Hey,
be
you're one of them.
Wouldn't be possible without you guys. It's
Yep.
a huge
Well,
thing.
Rick and Vicky Salisbury, Legends Motorcycles in Springville, Salt Lake Valley, Utah. I've known those two long, long time. Like myself, Rick is a home builder and a residential real estate, developer. And we just happen to have the same interest in antique motorcycles. Um, Brian Bozier, Sinless Cycles. Brian plays large in business. He plays large with his hobbies. It's really great to see him jump on board and support this effort. Um, Brian's owned some of the most significant motorcycles in the history of this sport. And I've always been real respectful of his taste. Plus, to be honest, if you go to his website, he's got one of the highest cool man cave buildings that anybody has. um, so, plus, it's kind of handy if Brian's around and you need a duck call, he's always got one around his neck. So,
always carrying one, huh?
The AMCA is also sponsoring this event. They just had their 70th anniversary this year, and they've had celebrations. I think they're going to do 4 national road runs. My Cherokee chapter that I'm a member of here in Texas did the first road run last fall in Arkansas. It was a wonderful event. So I'm the AMCA's got membership all over the world, and for them to step up and support this event sure says a lot. And we just want to make sure that we don't forget to thank the AMCA. And of course, Competition Distributing. Yours truly, Sean and Kelsey Jackson. Competition is a great company. It's now in a new chapter with new ownership. But Competition has been providing parts that people just cannot get to keep these old machines on the road where they need to be. So big thanks to Sean and Kelsey at Competition and your partner, Tom Banks.
Yep.
Yeah.
By the way,
oh, look at that! You got a Banks Brothers
hat. Flat brim hat.
Wow, you must have been
a flat brim. Do I wear it sideways? Do I wear it straight?
It looks good on you. Yeah.
Should I tuck my ears underneath? I'm not sure how to do this.
I think you have to ask Tom that one.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
There it is.
When I go to Pittsburgh, I wear my broad bill so that nobody mugs me on the street. So
yeah, you'll blend right in with that.
They'll see Tom Banks' name and they'll say, "Leave that guy alone."
That's right. That's right. That's awesome.
So we've got great sponsors.
Yes, we do. We are so thankful for all of them.
And I certainly encourage other motorcycle affiliated people to step up between now and September, and even a small contribution would help. Okay, not everybody can give 5, 10, 20,000 or more, but if you have a motorcycle company or a shop, I would encourage you, write TransAm a check, write them a $500 check, write them a $1,000 check. Okay, you'll be glad that you sponsored something that's this important to our sport.
Right.
And I don't want to forget about Veritas Vintage, your sponsor, because I've checked out your website and all the bikes you've had, and you stopped up this fall, you and Joan did, and we got to see some of your amazing bikes. So the Redding Standard stands out the most to me, but yeah.
The Redding was awesome, which actually I wanted to say something we were just recently at the Mecum auction with, Urban Hirsch's collection coming up, and he had a pretty nice Redding single, but it was really neat to compare that one to the one you brought up here, that you were selling to one of your customers, and it just showed me how nice that one that you had really was. Because I mean, the one down there was a great example, but yours was just so insane. The thing was like brand new. I've never seen anything like it. So
yeah, I'm really glad that you got to go to the auction. Urban was a friend of Joan and I.
Yeah, I figured
he was also a client. And hell of a character in the motorcycle sport. When we lost Urban recently, we'll never have anybody quite like Urban again. He was very passionate about motorcycles since he was a little kid. In fact, the reason he ended up in California was he left home, and I think he dropped out of school just so he could go ride motorcycles off-road out in the desert. So guy had a phenomenal collection, and he had some of the rarest bikes that anybody's had, and a lot of what he had you only see in books. So I'm really glad you got a chance to go see some of those bikes firsthand yourself.
Yeah, it was awesome to see everything in one spot. Probably not going to be another time like that anytime soon to see that kind of caliber of bikes in one location. So,
well, and it's, we've talked about sponsors, but another thing that's very exciting for me is looking at the roster of riders that have registered to be in this event. And when you sit down on motorcycletransam.com, write that down, motorcycletransam.com, and just look at these riders. After you read a little bit about each, one thing that's very apparent is there's just a lot of talent out there. Just so many of these people have done every single, endurance run or short run or that they can possibly do. There's kind of a veteran generation I see of your riders. Eric Ball from Alabama. I always call him Eric Ball, friend of all. Eric's just a great guy. I think he's going to run his 1915 Harley Twin again.
Yep.
And he just gets on it like a gentleman and goes down the road all day long.
Yeah.
I'm a little concerned about Eric. Who the hell spells Eric with a K and Ball with the letter H? So, he's probably has some issues, and the reason he rides is so that he can actually have, some friends. So until he learns to spell his name right, we're going to keep enjoying Eric. Tim Burns from Oregon, tremendous rider. He's done a lot of these events, and he rides a lot of different early Harleys. I think he's going to be on a 25 JDCB. The JDCB was a 1 year only in 25, the way that bike was configured. And to have one on the road is just going to be exciting to see. John Bartman, I don't know if you guys know John personally.
Oh, yeah.
John's quite the character. I have to be a little careful about him. John can be real aggressive.
You guys have to stare down there.
Yeah, the first time I met John in person, this is what happened.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. And it had all to do with the fact that I did not have any hair. And this actually happened also.
Oh, Kelly, you got Kelly on there too. Huh?
Here's another guy with way too much hair. Okay. And he's, picking on me. So I was real glad to see that we're going to get to that's one of our stops on this event is Twisted Oz.
Yep.
In Kansas. So great job, guys. Barry Wardlaw, do you know Barry?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Barry's a great guy.
He's a fairly good mechanic. He's learning.
Yeah.
No, Barry's a master machinist, a master fabricator, all things motorcycles.
We're hoping Barry can come. He's not 100% sure because he has Speed Week right before the race, so he doesn't know if he's
Well, I'm glad that you let all of us in TV land know that, because we can maybe guilt Barry into showing up. There's nobody more fun to ride with than Barry. And no matter what he rides, his machines are in top condition. So,
oh yeah, he just recently was nominated to be inducted into the Hall of Fame as well for the Sturgis.
Touche, well deserved.
Yeah, exactly.
But again, he's one of these guys that does have a lot of hair.
That he does. He's got a lot of hair.
And then we've got some old guy. I call him the old guy rules category. Bill Page out of Kansas. What a great guy.
Yeah.
Bill has been a biker his entire life. I'm pretty sure he and Kathy left their wedding, got on a chopper, and went on their honeymoon on a chopper.
Yeah, that's confirmed. Yeah,
that's the best.
Yeah. And she's still with him today. But Bill is Bill cuts himself and he bleeds 50 weight. He's a Harley guy. He's built some incredible Sons of Speed motorcycles. And I'm just thrilled to be on the road with him. I'll tell you another old guy. Is Frank Westfall going to be with us this year?
Yep, Frank signed up.
Well, I always liked Frank. He's an awfully passive guy. And squirrel. No, and he's very calm all the time. And, yeah. So I just had to do my Frank imitation here.
Looks just like.
No, Frank is good people. He's been in this sport a long time. And he's found some of the highest cool motorcycles, and just pulled them out of the dust and the darkness and put them back on the road. And I've just got a tremendous amount of respect for Frank Westfall. He tends to adjust his headlight on his Henderson a little bit high, but we'll help him with that on this road run.
Get him straightened out.
And then I guess the other exciting thing, we need to talk about Dave Courier.
Mm-hmm.
If we're going to have the old guys rule category, what a true focused entrepreneur. What a focused competitor. I mean, to get on a 1911 single cylinder, 1910 were 4 horsepower. I don't remember if it was 11 or 12. They went to 5 horsepower. But I mean, either way, to get on a 5 horsepower motorcycle with a leather belt that gets wet and doesn't want to grip, and ride that little bicycle seat 4,000 miles across America is not for the faint of heart. And Dave is just so detailed and so talented with building and setting up his motorcycles that I did a cross-country chase once, and he was on a small displacement, later Harley. It was a single, I think. And I mean, the guy drove 45 mile an hour all day long. So we passed him very early in the morning, and he'd always show up at the gas stops, and he'd always show up for lunch, and he'd always show up at the finish line. Just got a lot of respect for Dave Courier out of North Dakota.
That's right, Fargo.
So, and then I think what's also exciting is, we have a younger generation that are participating, and there's a good number of them. Danger Dan, Dan Hardick. Okay. Hey, Dan, it's not a chopper, dude. Okay? People are going to talk. This is kind of like cross-dressing, Dan. How did you decide to do the Trans Am endurance run?
He's going to be shunned from the chopper community now.
No, I'll tell you what, Dan is a really great guy. He's got a beautiful wife. He's got 2 really cool little boys, and they're riders.
Yep.
And Dan's got a huge following with his blog, and he takes his chopper all over North America. I mean, he just last year, I think he went all over Mexico. So I was real excited to hear that Dan was going to be a part of this event. And then, probably lastly, I'm going to mention like Jared Brinker. Okay. Jared's young. He's got small children. It's hard when you're young and you're raising a family and you have a career to be able to take a month off to do an event like this. But most people don't know, Jared is a 3rd generation Indian rider. His dad rode Indians. His grandpa rode Indians. And I think he's on a 19 Indian Power Plus. Not an easy motorcycle to go 4,000 miles on. So, again, I think we've just got a tremendous group of riders. I thank you for this event that you're limiting it to just 75. It makes it a lot more exclusive. So you go back to your earlier question, is this about the competition or is this about the camaraderie? The old saying used to be, 30 some years ago when I started being interested in this, that it's all about the motorcycles. And I've never agreed with that. I think the motorcycles are what bring the people together. And I have absolutely met some of the most incredible people I've ever known in my life in this sport. So we got great sponsors. We've got great riders. Not sure how many slots are available, if any, but if there are slots, folks, you really need to do this event. It's a once in a lifetime bucket list. You got to do it. You just got to do it. I guess my background, and this is a question I ask a lot of people. Um, when was the defining moment in your life, Sean, or your life, Bill, whoever I'm talking to, that motorcycles made an impression upon you and it stuck? The answer to that for me is when I was 6 years old. Actually, when I was 2 years old, my dad had, I think it was a 62 Cushman. It was baby blue. And I was 2 years old, or 61 probably, because I was born in 59. But I remember my dad sitting me on the gas tank, and I put my little hands on that baby blue gas tank. And I also remember my mother tuning him out, making him sell it. Um, my dad's only brother had a 57 Cushman that he bought a number of years. You know, he came back from World War II. He was a airplane mechanic. And I think after 7 or 8, 9 years of farming, he had a little money left over. So he bought a brand new Cushman. So between the Cushman my dad had and the Cushman that his brother had, man, those Cushmans, they weren't a motorcycle, they were magic. Okay. They sounded like half a Harley. They looked like half a Harley. I had a neighbor a couple of miles away, Ronnie Hoppert. They had a dairy farm. And I think Ronnie was maybe 10, 11 years old, and he had a Cushman Eagle with straight pipe on it. And I could hear him come from a mile away, and I would just run as fast as I could out to the road just to see him go by. My first two wheels, I was age 7, and I bought a rigid frame mini bike with a little black 5-horse Tecumseh motor on it. The frame was chrome, the front end was chrome, the seat and the motor were black. And the man wanted $75, and all I had was 72.
No.
So I tried to, cut a deal with him. For all I know, my dad paid the extra $3. Who knows? But that was my first set of wheels. So
That's awesome.
And then most of my buddies either had a dirt bike or they had a small, I was a generation in the 70s where everybody had a Honda, a 200, a SL 350, a 350 street bike. I remember a couple of brothers that farmed near us that got a 450 Honda Black Bomber. And that was like, wow.
That's a beast.
Oh, it was a beast. Okay. I mean, people from all over showed up on their little mini bikes and dirt bikes just to oogle over it. I had a band teacher, I think, when I was a freshman in high school that got a brand new 750 Honda.
Holy cow.
And I mean, we used to just stand around that thing. We'd never seen anything so big, and so powerful. So that was kind of my first influence, but honestly, there were enough of the older guys that had the big electric glide Harleys with the trunk and the bags and all the extra chrome things put on them. And they were big and they were heavy and they were not fast, but they were just so cool going down the road. So that influenced me a lot as well. Like I said earlier, it's all Joan's fault. Like most people, if you had a bike growing up, that was great. But once you got married, I had to sell my motorcycle and my really nice car to get enough money to buy my wife a wedding ring. And then I went out and bought a really older used car. So a lot of people, you lose your motorcycle once you get married and you start a family. Joan knew how much I enjoyed to ride. And in the first year we were married, I think we scrounged up like about $350, and I bought a 72 Yamaha 650. And I put a Sportster fender on the back, and I put a Sportster peanut tank on it, and I put a set of Z-bars on it.
Okay.
And it was a rattle can paint job. And
Oh,
when
nice.
I got done, I think I had like $450 tied up in the whole thing. There you go.
That's awesome. That's a picture you submitted. That's
Uh-huh.
cool as heck.
72. What were the XS 650s?
Yeah.
But Joni and I could ride all weekend, guys, on $2 worth of tractor gas.
Nice.
Tractor gas was cheaper than car gas. So we'd buy tractor gas, and I don't remember what it was, 35 cents a gallon, something like that.
Uh-huh.
But we could ride all weekend on a couple bucks worth of gas, and we didn't have any money. So I think in 1991 or 92, I had started my first company in 1990. And I mean, I'd leave at 6 in the morning, and I'd come home at 7, 8 o'clock at night, and I was worn out, and I would play with the kids a little bit and eat something. And then I would, sit at the kitchen table and work till 11 o'clock at night. I was self-employed, and I had to do everything myself. And Joni came up one Saturday and she said, "That's it. I am not going to be married to somebody that all you do is work. You're too stressed out, and you're going to get a hobby." So she bought me a brand new, I believe it was a 91 Harley Softail Custom.
Wow.
And, I think it was like $11,000, and I fussed at her for spending that kind of money. But that gave me a release. I could go for a ride. I could clear my head. I could, be a more normal person. So the antique thing evolved. I've always said it's all Joan's fault. She's a farm girl from Iowa. I tell everybody I met Joni in a cornfield. Not really, kind of. But she loved antiques. She liked antique cars. She liked antique furniture. She liked antique, kitchen utensils. She just had an appreciation for old stuff. And she found a 1910 single Harley in Britt, Iowa, and she begged me to buy it. His name escapes me at the second. Anyhow, I fussed at her and I said, "We are not spending $20,000 on a damn bicycle with a little bitty lawnmower motor in it. We're not going to do that." Her dad offered to give us the money. He said, "You'll never find another one." Royal McNeese, Britt, Iowa.
That's what you got.
Royal McNeese in Britt, Iowa had a Harley shop that he closed in, I think, 1986. Didn't have an auction. He just locked the front door. So the entire building was full of a lifetime of trade-ins and parts and knucklehead motors, flathead motors. He just locked the door and closed it up. That motorcycle today sits in Matt Wachsler's museum in Maggie Valley.
Nice.
So, but Joni fussed at me. She says, "When you find them, you have to buy them because you'll never find another one again." And she's right. And we have pretty much done that our whole life. So when you see Joan, it's all her fault. I'm not bright enough, you know, to collect all this stuff. It's all her fault.
Well, hey, that's a good problem to have. I
Yeah.
mean, having your wife wanting to buy all these old motorcycles, that's a good thing.
You know, when when you talk to most people about buying old bikes and collecting, you know, typically what you'll find out, regardless of what their age is, the first thing they want to buy or find is something that they thought was very high cool in high school or college that they obviously couldn't afford. And after they've been married, you know, 10 years or so, and the kids are a little older and they have a little extra money left, um, you know, and the stuff that fascinated me was like the 73 Z1 900 Kawasaki, you know, the 750 Honda, the the CBX 1000 6-cylinder Honda was so exotic and so fast and so powerful back in 79, 80, 81. And, you know, I made $2.50 an hour. So how do you even think about something like that? But I also remembered all these old guys when I was a kid growing up in a small rural town in Iowa that had these old Harleys. And I just told myself after not buying that 1910 that I need to do a little homework and I need to spend money on, you know, not high production Japanese Asian stuff, but try to find those really good old bikes. And the very first bike that I bought was a 48 Panhead. And I spent, I don't know, a year and a half restoring that. And that Cole Deister has the bike now.
Oh, Cole has it. That's cool.
Probably shouldn't have sold it. Cole really wanted a 48. Um, and I'll tell you how dumb I was when I first started this. That I had original tanks, but they were so rusted. I sold them at a swap meet and got money and went and bought a brand new set of repop tanks that weren't rusty. Okay.
Oh no! Oh,
Yeah.
don't say that out loud.
Well, I think everybody's made that mistake, but Cole did have a set of original tanks and I didn't. And he wanted a 48 and he and his wife ride it. They've got a 2-up buddy seat on it and it went to a good home. It absolutely went to a good home. So
yeah, Cole's a great guy. He's a good friend of ours.
Well, you know, Cole worked with me real hard.
Whoa, look at you guys.
Yeah, he works with me real hard to stay in shape. And I'm probably gonna have to hire him as a trainer before I do the Trans Am.
Yeah, you better get him back in there, man. Holy cow.
No, Cole's good people. So anyhow, this kind of brings us full circle back to what we talked about a little earlier. I got the 48. Then Joan bought me Valentine. And I think maybe you've seen the bike, maybe you haven't, but I've got a 1912 Harley single in its leather belt drive. Was restored in the 70s.
That's you had that at your when you hosted us in 21. You had it there, and you were riding around the parking lot.
Well, you know, it happened to be in the trailer, so I just hooked the trailer up, and there were a lot of people on the Cannonball ride that had never ridden an early belt bike, and I just said, "Gas is in it, go."
Right.
Tim Burns rode it. There were several other people that rode the bike. It's a great little bike. So she bought me that on Valentine's Day, you know, probably 30 years ago. And I've taken it with me all over the United States. And if somebody has never ridden an early rider, I teach them how to start it. I put them on it and I said, go. You know, and most people, if they have old bikes, they don't let anybody ride them. Okay.
Right.
And maybe I'm foolish, maybe I'm not. I don't think so. I encourage people say, come on. No, Mr. Klein, I'm not gonna ride. No, if something happens, look, Can you ride a bicycle? Yes, sir. Well, then I'm not going to offer again. Shut up and go. And they all giggle like a little kid when they come back. And I've kept a list, and I'm almost to 200 people now that have ridden that bike that would never, ever had a chance to ride something that was over 100 years old. And I just think it's cool. It's a great way to share the history of these wonderful machines. Is, instead of looking at one all shiny in a museum, you learned how to pedal it and start it.
Right.
You learn how to tighten the belt up, and take off down the road. And I always tell people, if I put them on a teens, 20s, 30s, 40s, whatever bike, I'll say, now close your eyes. And this is what the world looked like in 1930 or 1912, or 1948. Okay. Well, sir, I've never ridden a foot clutch tank shift before. It's not hard. Okay. It's just like let the clutch out, just like an old pickup truck your grandpa had.
Right.
But if you got out of the Army in 1948 from World War II with your GI pay in your pocket, this was what you could buy at the Harley shop. Okay. So I want you to close your eyes, picture yourself in 1948, let out the clutch, and we'll see you when you get back. And it just is to me, it's a great experience to share history with people. So,
yeah, you're spreading the joy, and maybe even gives a person that chance to get the bug, and convert somebody to be more interested in that kind of thing.
So, like I say, I've obviously strayed. I mean, I've had, knuckleheads, panheads, shovelheads, all matters of different Indian chiefs, and a Bruff Superior. I've even had one Triumph. But really, Joan and I focused on, pre-15 American brands, E.R. Thomas, Excelsior. I think I've had 3 Flying Merkles, a lot of different early Harleys, Indians, Johnson, Minneapolis, Pope, Excelsior, Redding, Shaw, Thor, and others. I just like the really early stuff. And I think that's what collecting's about. And I think that's what makes this sport so wonderful. I mean, there's some people, all they do is they're swap meet vendors. Some people collect clothing. Some people collect memorabilia, patches, pins, trophies. That's what's so neat about the sport. There's just so many different things that you can be interested in and, immerse yourself in. And when you bring all those people together, the history all comes together. So,
right.
Anyhow, this has been a good conversation. I'll tell you what, can I do a quick commercial break for you?
Yeah, sure.
Folks, if you go to motorcycletransam.com, they now have merchandise for sale. Okay. This is a really cool early jersey. It's embroidered. Okay. For you guys that have, a little tool shed for your tool, or maybe even have got a warehouse for your equipment, just look how thinning this is. Okay.
Sheds at least 10 pounds.
It's really comfortable, guys. I'm going to order some more just to wear on the ride. I've been wearing this around the house for the last week. Really comfortable. Hang on a second.
Oh yeah, the shirt.
Oh,
we also have Trans Am t-shirts. Very comfortable, very high quality. They're not a cheap t-shirt. There is a map of our route on the back of the t-shirt. And so go to motorcycletransam.com. If you can't afford to be in the event, the least you could do is look like you're in the event with us.
That's right.
Be cool and wear Motorcycle TransAm gear. Kelsey, what else is coming for merchandise in the future?
We have hats coming. We'll have more embroidered things, with the full front applique there. Some more screen printed t-shirts and decals for pennants. Yeah, can't forget about pennants.
Yay.
And decals for people's trailers and stuff if they want them. So we have a lot of exciting stuff coming up. Let's talk about your bike a little bit, Steve, and what modifications or what you're doing to get ready for going 4,000 miles.
I'm a little embarrassed, and I'll take the camera over and look at a close up here in a second. But like I said earlier in this broadcast, as much as I'd like to ride something that was pre-15, I'm not in the physical condition, nor I'm not a small enough guy to do that without a lot of pedaling. So I decided, let's do it first class. Let's do it on Henderson. This 1922 Henderson actually belonged to Steve Hunsinger for 29 years. It was one of his personal motorcycles. Oh, wow. I've known Steve a long time, and I've been blessed to have some of his restorations. It's an all-real, all born at the factory, Henderson Deluxe. The brake pedals had to be refabricated because Steve dug them out of the dirt, and they were just roached and rusted beyond being able to use them. And I believe, if I remember correctly, the only other part that was missing on the bike was somebody robbed the amp meter from it, and he found an original 22 Henderson amp meter. Wow. And somebody had robbed the taillight socket. So Steve got a hold of an original taillight socket, and he remachined a brand new one, but he made it to fit a modern bulb, which is brighter. I've got two sets of rims for this bike. I have a set of clincher rims laced up with clincher tires. But what's on the motorcycle at the moment are modern drop center rims with modern tires on them. I just don't want to attempt going across America on a set of clinchers. No. Especially on a Henderson at the speeds that the Hendersons will run. So what have I done to modify or prepare the bike? Mm-hmm. Nothing. When you buy a Steve Hunsinger restoration, you get an absolutely flawless built motorcycle. I will tell you that Steve was very patient before he restored this bike. Mark Hill and his son have certainly gotten a lot of Hendersons back on the road. And they've competed in other endurance events. And Steve was patient until Mark felt like he had enough information compiled that they could redo some things in the lower motor unit that would keep these motors from stopping. Okay. The trouble with any of these fours is the back cylinders can get a lot hotter. Heat is not good for any motor. So I believe they ran some internal oil lines that could direct oil in places that the motor needed better oiling. And once they got all that stuff figured out, Zinger sent the motor to Mark Hill, and he built the motor. Steve finished, I think Steve did his own cylinders, rods, and pistons. And Steve then finished the restoration on the bike. So I was sitting home one Sunday, I don't know, 3-4 years ago, and Mr. Hunsinger called me and he said, would you be interested? I know you want a Henderson. I've got a 29 that's an older restoration that I just ride a lot. But Steve knew I wanted an earlier Henderson. I really always wanted a 12. They're big money. and they're not really meant to ride a lot. And I like to ride everything. So when Steve offered me his 22, I could not say no. So all I'm going to do with this motorcycle is I'm putting a set of oversized leather bags on each side. And I'm going to attach I think it's a Zega 72 liter, like adventure bike aluminum trunk on the luggage rack. Just so I've got a place for a helmet and some extra clothes and a rain suit and, whatever tools I might need. And I bought a new full face helmet and some new socks and underwear, and I'm going to, that's it. So,
hey, that's what it's all about. You said you had like 2,500 miles on it though. So that's a pretty good vet for a bike. So,
yeah. And I know a lot of guys, spend late nights working on their bikes, but especially the really early stuff, the Indians and the early Harleys. You go out and put 300 miles on those in a day, and you better really check them because 4,000 miles on a little 4 or 5 horsepower motor, they really weren't designed to do that in one stretch.
no.
We're going to find out. And there's certainly a lot of people that have competed on these Hendersons. Westfall's been on a Henderson, I think, 3 or 4 events.
Yep.
Andrea La Barrera has, done wonderful things on a Henderson. Love her to death. I'm really just going to change the oil every couple of days. And I'm going to bring along a couple of tires and probably will only change the back tire once cross country. I just think if I sit down every night, wipe it down a little bit, that's the way I nut and bolt. If I kind of clean surfaces, I can check every fastener, every fitting. And as long as everything's tight and I've got good oil and good air pressure in the tires, I'm just going to run a thing 50 mile an hour and go down the road every day.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Put across.
I know a lot of stuff's going to come up in this race for all of you. Things that you're not expecting. So has that ever happened to you before where I'm sure it has, something came up that you didn't expect, and how'd you fix it as you were kind of just along the road?
Yeah. I carry, depending if I'm riding a knucklehead or a panhead or, an Indian or whatever I'm riding, I keep the appropriate tools in the saddlebag for that era bike. I've always carried a separate little small closed cell battery in case, you hit a bump or something and you short out your battery. The neat thing about these old bikes is there's no electronic ignition. There's no electronic fuel injection. There's no ABS brakes. There's no computer. Gas, air, spark. Okay. I guess if I learned anything when I started riding these really, really early bikes, and I think I, was on that little 1912 Valentine, and it was probably 45 miles from home one day, and it stopped running. So there you sit on the side of the road, and you get a little frustrated, you have a little anxiety, you're trying too hard to figure out how to get this thing running. And all of a sudden I had this epiphany, said, wait a minute, 100 years ago, if it quit, I would have had a pocket knife, a pair of pliers, and there would have been a barbed wire fence nearby. Okay. And they need gas, they need air, they need spark. So do I have gas? Yes or no? Do I have a spark? If not, why? Okay. If something comes loose, if you don't have a zip tie with you or a roll of duct tape or something, go steal a piece of wire off of the farmer's fence and wire the thing up so you can get back to town. I think with all the riding I've done, and knock on wood, I've been riding for 58 years and I've never gone down. Knock on wood, I think the only problem I ever had on the road would be like flat tires. And I carry an extra tube with every motorcycle. I carry a tire plug kit, which I really don't like to use, but if it gets you back to town, it gets you back to town. If you got a little tire pump, so most of my problems have either been, a gas issue, water in the gas. Did have a float bowl where the pin vibrated out on a pan head, and there I sat on the side of the road, had to take the carburetor off, put the float pin back in, then down the road I went again. So, I think the thing that everybody focuses on these rides is safety. You always want to dress for the ride, or dress for the slide, not the ride. Wear good boots so you have good traction on your feet when you put your feet down. Layer up with your clothing, have a rain suit, have a good helmet that's comfortable, and have enough tools with you that you can deal with whatever small issues you have on the side of the road. I think there's been a few accidents in the history of all these events. So, I just hope and pray everybody is real alert, because, if you're going across Nebraska or Wyoming or, Colorado, and boom, somebody's not paying attention, they can pull out in front of you. So I've been fortunate. I've been blessed that I've never been hurt.
Mm-hmm. So riding the old bikes and having ridden newer bikes, what do you think the big difference is between the antiques and non-antiques?
The experience. Okay. I look at people that, and don't get me wrong, if you're a brand new rider and you go to the local dealership and buy a brand new motorcycle today, good for you. Okay. I'm glad you joined the sport. I don't even turn on the radio in my pickup truck. If I drive my wife's car, I don't turn on the radio. If I want to listen to music or find out what the weather is or the news is, I do that at home. If I get on a farm tractor, a bulldozer, my semi truck, a motorcycle, I listen to the machine, I feel the machine, and I enjoy what I'm doing with the machine. And I think that's important with riders that do an antique event. Become one with the machine, listen to the machine. I'll tell you something that's interesting. These really early bikes did not have oil pumps. And there's going to be some bikes on this run that don't have oil pumps. Anything VL Harley or before, there's no oil pumps. The early Indians, no oil pumps. So people say, well, how do you know you have enough oil in the crankcase to lubricate this thing at 45 mile an hour, 50 mile an hour, going cross country on one of these rides? And I tell them all the same thing. If you sit in the comfort of your home and you're watching TV and you think, it's a little bit warm in the room, and you turn your thermostat 1 degree cooler on your air conditioning, and you're comfortable. When you ride these old bikes, you can feel the heat come up from them, and you can tell that motor's working a little bit harder and that temperature has increased. So you can reach down and take the oil plunger and give it another shot of oil. And within a half a mile, you can feel that temperature drop back down and the motor's not pulling quite as hard. So my advice is just ride your own ride and be one with your machine.
Yep. Know your bike. That's definitely the key. Mm-hmm. Is knowing that particular bike.
Mm-hmm.
What was your favorite adventure before you did the Trans Am? Like, what's the most what stands out the most, I guess, for a
Oh,
ride?
wow. I've always been a firm believer, if you have a chance spontaneously to do something that's, pretty high cool, do it. Now, I have my limits. I've never bungee jumped. Okay. But probably the wildest thing I ever did was not even on a motorcycle. Don't get me wrong. I enjoyed riding wheelies as long as I could when I was young. I was actually, I think, in Oregon and went up to see Crater Lake in the wintertime, and we were on snowmobiles. And I was watching these young guys, snowboard down this really steep section of the mountain. And rather than take the trail back on the snowmobile, I just kind of shot it off the edge and I went down the ski slope on the snowmobile, which was a hell of a thrill.
I bet.
And luckily, I did not get caught when I got to the bottom. I just got on the trail and hauled butt. Motorcycle would probably be maybe 25 years ago. Joan and I went to Maui, rented a bike, did the Hana Highway, which is, 300 and some turns in, I think, 60 some miles.
Oh, wow.
And the rental agreement is when you get to Hana, you turn around and you come back. And they had some storm and the road was washed out. But there actually are, 25 years ago, there were actually like little private gravel kind of ranch roads that went clear around the backside of Maui. I think today they're all paved. But back then, I got that rental Harley across the washed out ravine up the other side. And Joan and I did the entire back island of the backside of Maui. And one of the most beautiful places I've ever been on a motorcycle.
That's awesome.
That brilliant blue ocean up against those black lava cliffs was just incredible.
Mhm.
But the sun went down, and I don't think we made it back to the hotel till like about 1-2 in the morning, and it got cold. But there was just a bazillion stars out there. Another thing that I did for about 5 years is they used to have an enduro race in Big Bend, Texas, way out in West Texas. Again, this was probably 25, 30 years ago. And I think I bought like an old 650 Honda air-cooled pumper. They were what, Baja 650s, I think they called them.
I don't remember those.
650L maybe. Anyhow, you could buy them for like $2,500, and it was a 2-day, 200-mile enduro, and it was like mule trails, single track cattle trails throughout all of West Texas and Big Bend. And all that country is fenced off now, so nobody gets to ride it. That was always a really great experience as well.
Mhm.
So those are probably ones that's, I think the most incredible ones have not happened yet. And I'm looking forward to those.
Good. That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah. So what challenges are you expecting for the Trans Am, or what do you think might come up for you?
Well, I guess, nobody looks forward to having bad weather, and that could certainly happen. I mean, I've certainly taken motorcycle trips where I've gone, halfway across America on a modern Harley, and it just takes all the fun out of it if it rains hard for 4 or 5 days in a row. So I hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
One thing that I want to do, and I would encourage other people to do, I did the cross country chase a number of years ago, and I was so concerned about my points and getting all my miles and getting back on time, that if I saw something really incredible on the side of the road, I did not feel like I could stop. And I'm not going to do that on this run. I certainly would like to arrive on time at the end of the day so I don't get dock points. But if I see a really incredible piece of scenery, I want to make sure that I stop and take a picture of it and, kind of soak it in. So I think that's something that I've learned from doing rides. People are so focused on, I got to get to the end of the road by a certain time, that they pass up an opportunity to really, soak in something that God made out there that's gorgeous. So I hope I get to do both.
Well, and that's the thing with this run. It's a lot different than any other ones that have happened in the past. Is we're allotting a ton of extra time. There's nothing mandatory at all during the day. It's all about you and the machine. Yeah. So, and the only reason we're having any really kind of time limit on the day is just so we don't have a bunch of 100-year-old motorcycles roaming out there in the dark. Which obviously during the summertime, dark comes at a much later time. So we're gonna definitely focus on, you guys are spending all this time and money and prep work to do this, cross country run with your friends. We don't want it to be stressful. It's already stressful enough to keep the bike running that long, let alone adding time and quizzes and stuff like that. So it's going to be pretty lackadaisical and lenient for you guys, so you can actually take time to enjoy stuff like that. So,
well, and I'll tell you something else that I'm going to try and do, and I'm not the world's best when it comes to electronics. But I talked to Chris and Heather Callan, and they're going to support this event. And I think they've talked to you guys about how they're going to do that. Same with Keith Ball, and his blog and his, publications that he does. Chris and Heather are going to provide me with, I guess, some sort of GoPro kind of camera, and that I can mount on the motorcycle. And I just said, guys, I want something that's easy to operate. But what I'd like to do every day is start off the day with, here's today's route, here's today's itinerary, here's where we're at. And just say, folks, here's where we're going to go today. And then I'm supposed to be able to, while I'm riding, flip this camera on, and get some of this beautiful scenery, so that at the end of the day, I can somewhere or another email or text that to Chris and Heather, and they can edit it and then put it out there for the world to look at. I think it's important that we find a way that the tens of thousands of people that are interested in motorcycles, and certainly antique motorcycles, can go along with us on this adventure.
Yeah, we have a lot of people to, take videos and photos and, kind of keep track of the whole ride.
Jody's going to be doing narration every day.
Yeah, and Jody will be doing, following a different person every day and giving us their story and what happened.
Good.
Yeah. So we're really going to have a lot of stories to tell, I think.
And Jody
Perowitz.
Oh, I'm not sure I know her. Perowitz. Yes, I know Jody. In fact, when Jody was on that Cannonball run that Joan and I hosted, the second last stop in Victoria, Texas, Jody came up and pedal started my 1912 and rode it all around too. So, no, I just wanted to mention, I'm not sure how good I'm going to be at producing and talking to people, but I just thought if I started out with a little 3-minute thing in the morning, here's where we're going, this is the surroundings, these are the kind of roads we're going to ride on, maybe do another few minutes at the lunch stop, and then certainly a few minutes at the end of the day, and then take the GoPro and kind of go around and show other bikes and other riders at the start line and the finish line. I just think that's stuff that's interesting to people. And hopefully by the time I'm done, I'll be pretty good at doing it for y'all.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, more content, the better. What advice do you have for anybody entering this event that maybe has never done one like this before? Like, say, Danger Dan, who's another Texan.
Well, I'd give Dan different advice than I'd give everybody else. I'd give Dan some advice, just like settle down, man. No, Dan's a good rider. I mean, he does things on a chopper that I wouldn't do on a modern sport bike. So, we've put on a lot of national road runs with my Cherokee chapter, the AMCA Texas, Oklahoma down here. And we always do a safety meeting every morning while people are having coffee. And, some of the things that we remind people is, number one, please walk around your motorcycle. If you have a tire that's a little bit low, put in 3, 4, 5 pounds of air in it. Okay. If your chain's loose, tighten it up or lubricate it. I can walk around motorcycles and think, my God, that chain guard is about ready to fall off. Hey, Bob, why don't you come over here? Here's a tool. Let's tighten up your chain guard. So check your bike every day. Make sure that it's completely safe and roadworthy. Number two, ride your own motorcycle. I never like riding side by side with anybody unless I know their riding skills. I mean, there's some people you can ride handlebar to handlebar clear across America and never have a problem. Ride staggered. Okay. If you're on a really early bike with a coaster brake, rear brake on it, and you have no front brake, compensate for it. There's been a couple of accidents where people have gone down the backside of a mountain and had a little too much speed coming into a dogleg turn and couldn't make it. Keep enough distance between you and the motorcycles in front of you so that you have enough room to brake so that you can make a tight corner. Okay. I've seen too many riders that all of a sudden they bunch up in a little real tight curve, like going down the backside of a mountain, and somebody bumps into the back end of the bike in front of them, and then you have two motorcycles that have a problem. Just keep distance between you and other people. If I'm riding a slower bike with less, capable brakes, and there's 2 or 3 bikes behind me, I'll slow down, take the shoulder if I can find one, and wave them on past me. Okay. I don't want to get to know you that well that we tangle up our motorcycles. So be safe, look at your motorcycle, tighten your chain, oil your chain, keep your tires up, make sure everything's tight, nut and bolt your bike every night, and just stay alert.
Yep.
Okay? So,
No,
and have fun. Okay. If you get tired, you can make a mistake. If it's rained all day and you're getting weary and tired, or it's cold, you can make a mistake. So just compensate your speed and your stopping and your turning based on outside conditions and your physical and mental state of mind.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Let's do some rapid fire questions that I've been asking everybody.
Okay.
What's your favorite vintage motorcycle brand?
Yes.
I was going to say, you're the first person that I don't have a distinctive answer for. Everybody that we've interviewed so far, I pretty much know what they like. And I have no clue.
No. I like whatever I'm in the mood to ride.
Yeah.
Okay. People that know me the best say I'm bike sexual. I want to ride them all. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I just looked at a really cool Hayabusa 2 weeks ago. Okay. And I need it like a hole in my head, but I don't have this little patch yet that says I've joined the 200-mile club. So, might do that. If I'm in the mood to ride an early rider and just go for a putt down a little blacktop up here in the Texas Hill Country, I'll get on my 1912 Harley and I'll just go.
Yeah.
If I'm on the mood to stretch my legs a little longer and go a little faster, I'll get on a knucklehead. I like them all, guys. I really, truly do not have a favorite brand. I really don't.
Gotcha.
So,
what's your favorite tool in your garage when you're working?
if I don't put a pocket knife in my jeans in the morning, I feel like I forgot to put pants on.
I'm the same way. I'm the
Yeah.
same.
Oh, and by the way, guys, I actually did wear pants during this entire
Thank you.
interview today.
Yeah.
Okay.
I appreciate that.
Thanks for
Yeah.
doing that.
I didn't want it to get chilly and I had to, have a problem here. No, pocket knife. I cannot not have a pocket knife. I always have a pair of pliers. And like I say, every bike I've got's either got a little small toolkit, but it's specifically the tools you need for that era motorcycle. And honestly, I've had really nice shops, where I had a tire changer and I had a sandblast booth and I had a paint area and blah, blah, blah. I don't have any of that anymore. I've got friends like you. If I want engine work done, I give it to you. If I want paint work done, I give it to you.
Yeah.
I'm just getting at an age where I just, I don't want to restore them anymore.
Yeah.
I want to go ride them. So
Yeah, you want to enjoy it. I get it.
Hmm.
So
in the morning before you ride, coffee or tea?
yes. I enjoy hot tea. It's healthier for you. I have had a couple of heart attacks. So I have to pay attention to my ticker. I love 1 cup of coffee in the morning to get my caffeine, but couple of cups of tea is better. Now during the day, I'm an iced tea nut. You probably noticed when Joan and I stopped to see you in Pennsylvania, I carry a jug of iced tea with me everywhere I go.
Yeah.
So,
If you could ride anywhere in the world right now, where would you ride?
oh wow. I'd like to do the Himalayan ride. Ride across Mongolia would be pretty cool. I don't want to do anything really super strenuous like a Baja kind of event. Wished I would have done that when I was your age, Sean, but I didn't. But I can see myself, Doug Wathke, RTW, Around the World Doug.
Yep.
He and Polly have a home in Bulgaria. And you can actually go to Bulgaria and do 1 or 2 week rides out of their place, and just kind of pick what countries you want to see. So at this point in my life, I'd like to try some rides like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a lot of fun, especially with Doug and Paulie. It would be awesome to do something with them.
I've always had an itch to do the Pan American Highway, Central South America through Central America through United States through Canada. But with drug cartels and political tensions in Central America, that's not good timing at the moment. So
yeah,
I'm going to do this event and then I'll probably sign up for one, in Europe or South Asia. That Himalayan run, a lot of my friends have done it, and I'd like to put that on my bucket list.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it'd be cool.
All right, so let's get your closing thoughts. Any thoughts you have for the riders, the crew, the fans, anybody?
I just, like we've talked all the way through, Kelsey, the world's not a lot of fun. Everybody's got challenges of some sort. A lot of people are not happy. I just think this is a wonderful time for a bunch of people to get together and go on a really epic adventure. I guess we start out in Nags Head, North Carolina, and we end up in Oregon.
Yeah.
Yep, on the coast.
Yep.
Okay. It's just a wonderful opportunity to take all that crappy stuff in the world that we have to deal with every day and push it aside and get on a motorcycle and let some air go through your brain filter and experience all the sights and the wonderful smells. And like I said, we're going to try and share as much as this we can with some video. And that's all I want to do, is I just want to go out there and try to do something like the very first people that went across America did. But I also want to share it with people so that they get an opportunity to see what that must have felt like. So I'm just looking forward to seeing everybody. I know a lot of the competitors, but there's also some people that I've not met, and I look forward to meeting them and developing relationships with them as well. So, and as always, guys, I really appreciate what both of you do for this sport. Sean, you're a master at what you do in the shop. Kelsey, there's a place in heaven for you for putting up with him. So, and as you can see, you know, when you come to the Klein house, we have motorcycles indoors.
That's the way it should be.
Well, Kelsey, I've been to your house, and I certainly know that you do that as well.
Oh, that's cool. Awesome.
You know, there's 1902 Indian, you know, and an 04 ER Thomas.
Wow.
So we, you know, we're kind of stuck. We've got the disease. There's no known cure. And guys, we look forward to seeing everybody between now and then. If anybody needs any help with planning, give us a shout. We all share information with each other. And please join us on the road so that the Jacksons and the Kleins and everybody else that's riding on this event can share what we do on the road with you. And God bless, and we will see you soon.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks. Bye.